Hi, everybody. Meteorologist Joe Cioffi here. Weather in 5 days and 5 minutes. And you know it's not going to be 5 minutes today. It's going to be longer. Well, we have all this weather going on with the tropical systems that are in play. We've got Fred, the remnant low, moving into northern West Virginia and heading for western Pennsylvania and western New York. We now have Hurricane Grace in the northern Caribbean, moving westward and beelining for the Yucatan Peninsula. And between the two, Tropical Storm Henri off the coast of the southeast coast, well off the southeast coast of the United States, and continuing to make a slow track to the west. So we're going to we'll cover the short range first, and then we'll leave the tropical systems Grace and Henri for the second half of this. Weather in 5 is brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware. Might not be a bad time to think about whether you got all the stuff you need, just in case Henri decides to pay a closer visit to the coast this coming weekend. They're at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon. 631-756-1125 is the phone number for the best prices in town. OmniTrueValue.com, the website, and Wholesale Holiday Lighting by Giannini, your complete holiday lighting specialist, meeting all your decorating needs, whether you want your home decorated for the holidays or perhaps you want to do this as a business. Give them a call at 631-957-5106. They're at 162 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst, New York. LIHolidaylighting.com is the website. So, first things first, we're going to talk about the remnant low of Fred, because that is the driver of the weather in the Northeast today. And you're seeing the obvious swirl there, producing substantial rainfall well to the west at this stage of the game. Pay attention to this tail of clouds that you see extending from Fred down through central Pennsylvania and into North Carolina and coastal South Carolina, because as that swings eastward and lifts northeastward, that's going to trigger off some thunderstorms later today, and the Storm Prediction Center is focused on some severe weather. Here's the radar, what it looks like at shortly after 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We were focusing on west of I-81 as far as the potential for flash flooding with this, and that is indeed the case. You actually have to, in some cases, you have to drive a fair distance west of I-81 in order to get into some of the heavier flooding rains, and that extends now up into western New York, and we're seeing some downpours even extending up through northeastern New York and into Vermont. On the southern end of this, some scattered showers, and you get this big break, and then you see that tail I'm talking about, producing a narrow line of showers and some thunderstorms, which are going to increase as we go through the afternoon and into this evening. Now, the Storm Prediction Center has the eastern edge of the marginal risk in western Connecticut to about New York City, down the Garden State Parkway in New Jersey, and continuing southward into southeastern Virginia. So it's from that area westward that we think has a shot for some severe weather. And there is a slight risk being indicated now by SPC. This was a bit of an upgrade from yesterday for much of central Pennsylvania, north to south, most of Maryland, and into northeast Virginia. Now, this does come with tornado risk today. 5% risk in that slight risk zone, and a 2% risk for tornadoes spinning up in the marginal risk area. And as you know, back from a few weeks ago, we saw quite a few tornadoes impact southeastern Pennsylvania and central and South Jersey. We don't want a repeat performance of that by any stretch of the imagination. The risk for severe weather going forward this week does lessen, so that is at least a good bit of good news. Now, earlier today, the surface low associated with Fred is right there in northern West Virginia. We've got this warm front that is set up just to the west of New York City and goes back to a surface low in Lake Ontario. Very warm tropical air surging northward. You're looking at temperatures this morning that were in the 70s, and dew points that were up almost even with the temperature. So this is really saturated tropical air that we're talking about. And with the system, with Fred, the remnant low, and a little bit of energy from a little upper air trough, you've got a fairly solid setup here for the potential of severe weather for later today. So let's run through what's going on. I'm gonna look at this from the standpoint of the upper air because we're not really going to see any kind of cold front coming through. But what we are going to see, if you take a look here, there is what represents Fred and the upper trough with it that is moving on up to the northeast. Henri is down here to east of Florida. And as we go forward, once we get through the weather that we have this evening and into tonight, and Fred goes by to our north, we're actually going to probably experience a little bit of drying here on Thursday and maybe even lingering into Friday. It's not going to be dropping the dew points very much, if at all, at the bottom part of the atmosphere. So it's going to remain rather humid for Thursday and for Friday, but we'll probably have more in the way of some sun and the chance that there could be a scattered shower or thunderstorm in the afternoon or evening. That's how it will play for the next 2 days. Now, for the rest of this afternoon, the rest of today will be very warm and humid. We're going to be watching for some showers and thunderstorms that will develop as that tail comes up and that risk for severe weather. I think the best chances for that would be late in the afternoon and into tonight. If you're east of that marginal risk zone, if you're in southern New England, if you're on Long Island, maybe the risk of a downpour or a thunderstorm. But I think for much of this area and for much of that whole area, even where you have the severe weather risk, much of this, the weather going forward until late afternoon is going to be basically rain-free. Again, unless you get some isolated renegade shower that moves on through. All right, let's take a look at Tropical Storm Grace. And I just want to point out here in terms of the intensity models that we do have it as a minimal hurricane now, and it's got time to get stronger before it goes into the Yucatan Peninsula. And you can see the peaks there. And then after that, it goes into the southwestern Gulf of Mexico and then moves right along. We've been saying how that strong ridge that has been sitting up in the southwest Atlantic and extending across the Gulf of Mexico has no weakness here. So there's no chance of this turning northward and impacting anybody along the Gulf Coast. It's going to go across the Yucatan Peninsula and then eventually westward and into the coast of Mexico, around Tampico, or perhaps a little bit south of Tampico, and then heading straight west and coming out on the other side. Now, let's talk about Henri. We have the system as a high-end tropical storm at the moment. There's a bit of northerly shear going on, and if you notice, it's not a perfectly circular system. It's kind of distorted a bit, just slightly stretched out a bit northeast, southwest, and that's due to the northerly shear. On the northwest side of the storm, there's not a whole lot going on. You see the swirl there of the higher clouds and some mid-level clouds, but you don't see that really dense, bright white cloud cover showing up. So that's, again, due to the northerly shear, and that's going to probably persist for the next couple of days, which will limit strengthening. But it is moving westward, and as it sits in between Fred, the system that is Fred, and Fred is up to the north and west, and Henri well to the south and east. In between that, we have this strengthening upper high that extends down into the Gulf of Mexico, and of course we talked about Grace going underneath that upper high. But Henri is underneath this upper high too, so there's nothing to stop this from continuing to move westward and go inside the 70-degree longitude benchmark, which is roughly right about here. So anytime a tropical system gets into this section, we want to pay a little closer attention to it, certainly. And then, of course, you start to look at what's going on upstream. And one thing to point out here is that we do have troughing in the western part of the United States. Now, if this were to come eastward, this would be a no-brainer. This would basically move east, and then Henri would just kind of respond to that by recurving out. But the problem is that upper air trough that's back here in the west is not going to be coming to the east. It's actually going to lift back up northeastward into central Canada. And that is where the problem lies, because that leaves a weakness from the Great Lakes down through the Ohio Valley to the Carolinas, and Henri will probably try to respond to that. That is one of the big variables here going forward. Now, this is the latest. They call them the spaghetti models, because they all look like these strands of spaghetti lying out there. I usually just refer to them as the hurricane tracking models. And yeah, the vast majority of the models are taking this offshore. But as the Hurricane Center noted in their latest discussion, and through my own observations over the last day and a half, we've seen these models here walking a little bit further to the west with every run. And in fact, we have one that actually takes it right over western Long Island. Now, again, these are just different model plots. We have a few of them now, though, bringing this in very close to or into southeastern New England. So that has kind of caught my attention. That plus the fact that the ones that are further east, even those have kind of moved back westward. So one of the things we're going to be looking for as we go through today and tomorrow is to see if the hurricane tracking models continue to do that and continue to walk back the system further to the west. The intensity guidance, now this was the intensity guidance from overnight, where Henri stays as a tropical storm, and then after 48 hours, as it gets inside that 70-degree west benchmark, probably on Thursday night or Friday, we are going to see conditions in the upper atmosphere become more favorable for strengthening. In fact, they may actually become quite favorable for strengthening as that shear is forecast to lessen, assuming that it does. And that's why the intensity models are reacting the way they are, where you have a number of them, almost all of them take this to a category 1. You have some that take it to a 2, and then you have a few outliers here that take it to a 3, and even one that takes it all the way up to a 4. That was the overnight intensity guidance. The new intensity guidance I just bringing up now doesn't really change very much. You have the same idea, staying as a tropical storm through about 48 hours. A few of them are actually strengthening it faster, but I think the shear is obvious. So until that shear goes away, it's going to have a bit of a tough time getting there. But after 48 hours, when the shear does diminish, you have a large number of them taking it to category 1, and then a few to category 2, 1 to a 3, and 1 to a 4. So the overall view of this is you can either sort of take the average of all of them, or just look at the fact that the bulk of the models take it to a 1 or a 2 and figure that that's probably where this is going to go ultimately. So here's how it plays out on the GFS. And bear in mind that the global weather models here have been going, they're all going in sort of different directions. And one of the models, the European model, which a lot of people always gravitate to, has really been just god-awful with tropical systems during this season. For some reason, it seems to wipe them out, make them disappear. It kind of does the same thing with Henri. So for now, since all the other models are on one side of the equation here with regards to intensity, I'm just going to discount what the European has done completely, at least for now. Meanwhile, the GFS is one of those models that's actually the furthest to the left. It's the furthest west. And we mentioned before about this upper trough. Here's your Fred trough, okay? So we're starting out from this morning. So there's the trough that is Fred. Here's Henri. There's that big upper high that Henri is underneath. And continuing to force it to move. Actually, it's been moving a little bit south of due west. That's going to continue as the ridge just holds. The trough from Fred goes out. Now, we start to see here, later on Thursday, you start to see this troughing back into the Great Lakes. That's one of the things you want to watch here. If this trough were to swing southeastward, Henri would get caught in that and maybe make a close pass to North Carolina, but then get taken away to the east-northeast. That particular trough is dropping southward, the bottom end of that trough, and you see it right here. There's actually, you could put a little upper low sitting there in Ohio. the trough we mentioned in the Pacific Northwest, it moves into the plains, and that gets sheared off to the northeast up into central Canada. So it's not going to be able to kick this straight east and then, as a result, take Henri out. Instead, you start to see the upper air flow as we head to later Friday night, and Saturday become south-southwest from the Carolinas to southern New England because of that upper low in Ohio. And to top that off, you start to suddenly have a ridge building across New England and into southeastern Canada. So that effectively traps the upper low in Ohio and West Virginia. And now you can watch how it picks up Henri, and like a lever, it just kind of lifts it up to the northeast and north. And the overnight GFS run, and in fact, it's been the last 3 model runs, brings it very close to Block Island or Eastern Long Island and into southeastern New England. I don't know that this is going to be the actual solution. I think the way I look at this right now is recognize all the players that are involved and that it is rather complex, because any subtle changes in any one of these is going to make a huge difference in the track. For example, if the upper low, supposing the upper low were a little stronger and maybe a little bit tighter, that would bring this even further to the left. If the ridge up in New England that builds up into southeastern Canada, if for some reason that's weaker, then you're going to have this turn out more to the northeast. I think the Northern Plains trough is going to do what it's going to do regardless. It looks like that's just going to shear up into central Canada, and as long as it does that, it can't kick Henri out. The one other variable in all of this is the strength of this tropical storm when it gets closer to the coast, because if it becomes a stronger system, that usually makes them turn poleward a lot faster. When they're weaker systems, they respond to the low and mid-level flow, which is going to be more from east to west, or perhaps from southeast to northwest. If the storm were to become stronger, let's say if it were to strengthen to a Category 2 hurricane or higher while it's well offshore, then that would favor it responding to the winds higher up in the atmosphere than the 18,000 foot level, and that would likely cause a recurvature and take it out more to the east. So you get the idea here. There's a lot going on. We'll get through whatever we get through today with regards to severe weather, and then we can start focusing our attention on the weekend. In terms of timing, we're talking about a time frame for Sunday, the way that this is looking. So this would be Sunday moving up the coast, and then Sunday night into Monday going into southeastern New England, or possibly maybe a little bit further to the west. Again, assuming that this is correct, and we don't even know that that is the case. But you get the idea here, folks. We got a lot of players, a very complex setup, and we're just going to sit back and wait for the afternoon model runs to get it maybe a little clearer in terms of how this is all going to play out. Weather in 5 brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. 631-756-1125 for the best prices in town. OmniTrueValue.com is the website, and make your home the best decorated home on the block. Wholesale holiday lighting by Giannini. By the way, they do Halloween, and that's coming up. Your complete holiday lighting specialist, meeting all your decorating needs at 162 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst. Whether you want your home decorated or you want maybe to do this as your own business, give them a call, 631-957-5106, and the website is liholidaylighting.com. For those of you who are on my weather platform on Patreon, that's patreon.com/meteorologist Joe Cioffi, you will get a Weather in 10 video this afternoon after all the models are done. So sometime after 3 o'clock, I'll give you a step-by-step look at Tropical Storm Henri and everything else that might be going on during the late afternoon and evening. So that's a subscription site. It's $2 a month, and that's how I make my living these days. So if you care to support, join my platform on Patreon. And the Joe and Joe Weather Show tonight, of course, will cover all of this, and that's on my YouTube channel, Joe Cioffi, at 7:30 Eastern Time. Did it in 20. Have a good day, everybody.